Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 458. I kicked off with d4. My opponent played knight f6, and we get into the King's Indian defense. So I decide to play a fianchetto setup against the King's Indian, although I go with normal developing moves first, knight c3 and knight f3. Looks like you can play g3 as early as this move, and I think next time I will. When I looked at this with the engine, if you look at g3 here, this keeps, well, you have to let this settle down. This keeps some edge for this keeps some edge for white, particularly if he follows the main moves here, bishop g7, even against c6, knight f3. White keeps some edge here, so that's probably the way to play it. I played a delayed fianchetto, so I went knight c3 first, bishop g7. Once again, I could play g3 on this move. But I went e4, taking over the whole center, and he goes d6. So typical King's Indian, knight f3, castles. And then I played g3 here, going for the fianchetto setup at this point. And I guess it's just not quite as good. The move e5 seems to pretty much equalize for black here. Bishop g2. And, well, he needs to take, I guess, to get the best advantage right here. He goes knight c6. And, well, we stay in the range of about even for a few moves. I castle, and that's probably a mistake. I needed to push d5 at some point. And now, at this point, I've allowed this move bishop g4, which is kind of unfortunate. He also had other alternatives here. It's already interesting for him to take. And knight takes, queen takes. The queen is a bit of a target here, and you can play knight d7, try and push my queen around and prepare for f5, and also getting his knight to e5. And it looks like a comfortable position for black. So if we back up, let's see, he played bishop g4 here. It's also a good move. You see, it keeps the edge for black. So I have already gone astray in the opening. Things get a little bit worse here, but d5 and knight d4, this is about as good as I can play. It's the h3 actually loses a pawn here to the tactic that was played in the game. He just exchanges out on f3, and then at the end the pawn on h3 is hanging. So I need to play something else, maybe in the immediate bishop g5, rook to e1, makes sense. Some other move. I was thinking queen d3 might be a way to play it as well. At any time, though, he can and then knight to d7. It's interesting. So he's preparing to, with knight d7, there's this idea of exchanging out on f3 anyway and then pushing on with f4, or maybe f4 first, and my queen on f3 is going to be a target. And something like this happens in the game. So it looks like I'm already in a bit of trouble here. So I played h3, though, and this just loses a pawn, and he discovers it, or he plays it. Knight takes, bishop takes, and he can just grab the pawn over here instead of trading bishops. So I've lost a pawn for not much, and he keeps in the advantage for a while. Plays logical moves, developing his queen, protecting the bishop, and making room for the rooks to come over. I go king h2, trying to harass his bishop a little bit. Bishop drops back to g4, and I didn't really want to trade and invite his knight into my position here, so I kept things steady and just played bishop g5. But this is a mistake. The bishop is actually a target here, so if we back up, what kind of moves do I have instead? Rook h1. Yeah, that would be a logical follow-on to my previous moves, putting a rook on the h file. That was what I intended. Dropping the bishop back to e2 or moving the king to g2 are other ideas here. Okay, but I played this move. And right now, well, he trades first, which is good. And then he throws in this knight g4 check, clearing the f-file with tempo. All this is pretty well played. I've moved my king, and then he plays f5. And so it's this sequence that puts my bishop in danger. Also, my queen is under a threat. So I need to move it away from this attack on the queen with tempo, and there's a threat on f2. The knight and the rook are coordinating on f2 after the f file clears. So I need to get out of this. I played queen to e2. It looks like queen d1 maybe is a little more accurate, but it's all good for black. But right now, instead of taking what he did and opening up this file, he can instead go for the bishop trap and play f4. And this just wins a piece. I have no real way to save my bishop. If I try f3, which is the top choice of the engine, his knight comes into here with check. And after I move my king, then he can play h6, and there's no escape for the bishop. If I go back here, he's just going to play g5. So that loses. And if I take, which is probably what I would have tried, then he takes back, and the bishop is still trapped. This pawn is solidly defended by his rook. And let's see, if I try moving my queen to d2 to attack, then f3 check, and looks like he is crashing through with his attack. So very dangerous position here for me. So fortunately he didn't spot this, and he took on e4. Now we get a position where I'm still worse. I'm down a pawn, but his attack is no longer crashing through. It's because I can take back with the knight and defend the f2 square that I'm okay here. So he comes in with f5, the queen to f5. I push on with f3, trying to chase the knight away. Knight drops back, and then g4, kicking the queen back. And then I decide to trade off some pieces to get rid of this pressure. And so I've sort of gotten back in the game. Black is still better, but I'm not getting overwhelmed. And probably continuing with rook to h1 would be the logical way to continue. I played g5. This is a bit of a risky move. If he goes bishop to e7, keeping pressure on the pawn, that's probably the best way to play it. Instead, he went to g7, and I get my rook to h1 with some ideas of attacking on the h-file. And he has similar ideas of attacking on the f-file. So our plans continue logically. He doubles on the f-file, and I double on the h-file. He brings his other rook over. I bring my other rook over. And this move, rook, cancel that. This move, rook to h3, also defended the f3 pawn, as well as doubling along the h-file. So right here, he makes a mistake in playing queen f7. And after that, there's a tactic that I spot that gives me an advantage. The chess engine line here is very funny. It's not a way I would have thought of playing at all, because h5, I always tell you, don't move the pawns in front of your king, especially if you're under attack, because it just creates weaknesses. And but the engine thinks this is the best way to play, giving up a pawn. And the idea is to use this h-pawn as shelter. So he puts his king in front of the pawn, and so he's given up a pawn, so the material is even. But apparently black's attack is a little better than white's in this position. My king is just a little bit more exposed. I don't have my opponent's pawn to shelter my king with, I guess. Pretty interesting way to play. So anyway, queen f7 is where the tide turns in the game, because there's a little tactic that I found in the game having to do with this knight f6. I realized that after I take, he's probably going to take the pawn, which is a natural move. And actually, it's one of his best moves here. I mean, he can't take my knight. So, he can't take my rook. So, what else is he going to play? Although the chess engine likes queen f5 here, then I could just bring my rook back to defend. But it would go after the g pawn. Okay, so that's the top choice of the engine. But f3 is the second choice, rook f3. And now I can play this knight f6 move, which gives me the advantage because it's interrupted the defense of the rook, and that's what I thought the main point of the tactic was. And he needs to move the rook, and so his best move is to take with the rook, take the knight with the rook. And then I would take back with the pawn, and he can take with the queen now. And he's down the exchange, but he has two pawns. And it's only a slight edge to white here. So an interesting game would continue from this point. He's still got pressure on the f-file. So black has a lot to play for in this position. So instead he makes the mistake of taking with the bishop, which is just a terrible move, because the bishop was pinned against the queen, and now I can take the queen. For some reason, I was still fixated on the idea of grabbing his rook here. I didn't even notice this move, and I played this move kind of automatically. But that's not the best move. He could just retreat his bishop back, and we once again get a situation where I'm I'm up the exchange. But well, he can play on. But in this position, after bishop takes f6, I played queen takes f3. He didn't retreat his bishop. He took the rook. Maybe he thought he was trading a queen for 2 rooks. But at the end, his bishop is still hanging. So he played queen takes, rook takes, king takes, and then I can just grab the bishop. And I'm going on to win this game from here. There's one more interesting point I will get to. He plays rook f7 to blockade the pawn so it can't come forward anymore. I go queen h3 check, which is the best move. His king is forced back to g8. And right here I missed the best move. I played queen to h4 defending my pawn, but the move queen to e6 the chess engine recommends is much, much stronger. It pins the rook, it defends the pawn, and it threatens havoc on the back rank. So, for example, queen here, and if he moves the king, which is the top choice here, I'm going to grab the rook. So say he makes a pawn move. Then I have this check on the back rank. And once again, if he moves the king, notice these squares are all covered, he loses the rook. So he has to block with the rook. Well, if he doesn't want to lose more material. And then this is mate in 2. Check here, king here, checkmate. So it's a threat of either losing the rook or mate in 2 after queen e6. And and the chess engine is recommending just giving up the rook right away. So it would be a pretty easy win from that point. So I missed that idea, but something to keep in mind. A nice tactic there. Okay, I played queen h4, and then the game goes on for a long time. Although I never lose the advantage, I'm just going to go through the rest of the moves without discussing them much. I don't give anything away here. I keep a winning edge the whole time, but certainly not the most efficient way to win it. And it's a lot of maneuvering. But the queen is just a superior piece to the knight, so I win a few pawns and get a passed pawn myself. And he manages to stop the pawn, but he has to give up his rook. And so with queen against a king and some pawns is a pretty easy win. His pawns are not anywhere near close to queening, and it's going to be a mate in a couple of moves here when he finally resigns. So that's how the game ended. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.